Hello everybody, welcome to an at-home edition of science. So in this video I'm going to show you guys how to read and how to use a solubility curve. When you are looking at a solubility curve graph, it's going to look something similar to this. You're going to have temperature across the bottom on your x-axis. That's almost always going to be in degrees Celsius. And then you're going to have grams of the solute over here on the left-hand side on the y-axis. So that's going to be measuring grams. They'll tell you which solute it is. It will always be the same solute that you see in the problem. It's also going to tell you how much water they used, but that's going to be the same amount of water that you see in the problem. So they're not trying to trick you with this. You don't have to worry about that. So let's say we have a problem like this. How many grams of magnesium sulfate will dissolve in 100 milliliters of water at 15 degrees C? Let's break down the problem. What are they asking us to find? They're asking us to find how many grams. They told us the solute, but that is the same solute that the graph is written for. They're not trying to trick you here, so you don't have to worry about it. Will dissolve in 100 milliliters of water. That's what the graph is drawn for. It's drawn for the amount of water they give you in the problem. Again, they're not trying to trick you. Don't worry about that. We do need to take a look at the temperature, because hopefully what you can see from this graph is that a different amount of magnesium sulfate will dissolve at different temperatures. So they told us to take a look at 15 degrees C. I'm going to come down here on my x-axis on the bottom. I'm going to look for 15, somewhere in between 10 and 20. Just eyeball it. Just give your best guess. And you're going to go up until you see that dark line on your graph. That dark line is showing you that's the amount that is going to dissolve at that temperature. So we went up to the temperature until we met the graph, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to look over here on our y-axis, and we're going to try to determine the number of grams. It's more than 5, but it's less than 10. Look, in my class, as long as you give me an answer that is more than 5 but less than 10, I'm going to be happy with you, and I'm going to count it as correct. To me, that looks like, I don't know, 7, okay? So for me, my answer for this particular question, I would say 7 grams of magnesium sulfate will dissolve at 15 degrees Celsius. Maybe your problem, the next problem is a little bit different. Maybe the next problem says how many grams will dissolve at, let's say, 40 degrees Celsius. We're going to do that problem exactly the same way. We find the temperature at the bottom, 40. We're going to go from that temperature, we're going to go straight up. We're going to attempt to go straight. I apparently can't do a straight line today, until we meet that dark line on the graph. Then we're going to travel over from that line. We're going to try to be a straight line. And it's somewhere above the 15. Maybe you think that my line curves up a little bit. Maybe you think it's right about the 15. I would mark you correct. If you said 45, we have a problem. If you said 2, we have a problem. Somewhere around 15, I'm going to mark you correct. You're fine, okay? So for that second problem that we just did, my answer would be about 15 grams. You don't have to write answer, okay? I'm just doing that for the sake of this video. Now, another kind of problem that you might see is something like they might give you a certain number of grams and they'll ask you, will this much dissolve at a certain temperature? So maybe the question is, will 20 grams of magnesium sulfate dissolve in 100 milliliters of water at, what do I want to say, at 30 degrees Celsius. So how do we do this kind of problem? Okay, so we're going to, again, we're trying to look at 30 degrees Celsius. So I'm going to take 30, I'm going to travel up. That dark line occurs somewhere between 15 and 10. I'm going to guess that's about 12. So when I look at this, it looks like only 12 grams of magnesium sulfate will dissolve in 100 milliliters of water at 30 degrees Celsius. Will 20 milligrams? No, 20 is all the way up here. Okay? 20 is above the line. Above this line, if you manage to get that to dissolve, you would be making a supersaturated solution, but that doesn't normally occur. So normally you can't do this. Anything above that line would be a supersaturated solution, and so normally, no, you can't get that much to dissolve. What if instead of 30 degrees C, what if the problem said, will 20 grams of magnesium sulfate dissolve in 100 milliliters of water at 80 degrees C? Let's try that one. We're going to come over here to 80. We're going to go up here, and I had to erase my line a little bit to write my problem. My line doesn't even go up that far. I'm going to take the 20 grams. I'm going to trace this over. 20 grams gets me right here. That is below my dark line. Let me go ahead and finish that dark line to make it look a little bit more like the things you... Wow. Is my marker completely dead? That's interesting. Guess I used that one earlier. Okay. So when I look at 20 grams of magnesium sulfate at 80 degrees, that's over here. That is below the dark line of the graph. So this, yes, it will dissolve. Anything underneath the graph is an unsaturated solution. And so it can dissolve that plus some more. That will happen. Okay? So a few of the things to remember when you're looking at a solubility curve. The dark line on the solubility curve is showing you the maximum amount that will dissolve at that temperature. If you are below that line, yes, that much will dissolve. If it is above that line, no, that much will not dissolve unless you do something kind of weird to make a supersaturated solution, and that doesn't normally occur. So generally, we're just going to say, no, you can't do this. The last kind of question that you might possibly get is something along the lines of, one of my other cats just walked into the room and she likes to talk, so you may hear her meowing. You may get a question that says, how much magnesium sulfate will dissolve? I hope the top of this is in the camera frame. I'm so sorry if it's not. How much magnesium sulfate will dissolve in 100 milliliters of water at, what's a number we haven't used yet? 60 degrees Celsius. That's the last kind of question you might get with a solubility curve. Okay, so we're going to find 60 degrees. We're going to travel up until we meet the line. And then again, we're going to trace that over here. And that's somewhere between 30 and 35. Okay? I am completely fine with you guesstimating. As long as you give me a number that's between 30 and 35, I'm going to mark you correct. You're absolutely fine, all right? So in this particular case, I am going to say that looks like 32. If you think it looks like 33, you're fine. All right, so my answer would be 32 grams of magnesium sulfate will dissolve at 60 degrees Celsius. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask me in class or hit me on Remind, and I'll be more than happy to help you as soon as I can. I hope this helps. Goodbye.